Tomorrow morning, an alarm clock will wake you up. You will probably check the time before your eyes are fully open. Maybe you will grab your phone, check notifications, check emails, check messages, and then you will spend the next several hours working. Most people do this 5 days a week. Many do it 6. Some never really stop. Now here's a strange question. What if I told you that for almost all of human history, none of this existed? No jobs, no salaries, no bosses, no alarm clocks. In fact, for nearly 300,000 years of human existence, the very concept of a job would have sounded completely insane. Yet, somehow, those humans not only survived, they created art, music, stories, religions, complex social systems. And according to many anthropologists, they may have actually enjoyed more free time than you do. Which raises a different possibility. What if modern humans are not the most liberated people in history? Because the evidence suggests that some hunter-gatherer societies spent as little as 12 to 19 hours per week acquiring food. And the deeper researchers looked, the stranger the story became. Ancient humans didn't just work less. They slept differently, they socialized differently, they raised children differently. So tonight, forget everything you think you know about the prehistoric life. Because the real story isn't about primitive humans struggling to survive. It's about how a species that once worked only when needed slowly built a world where work never ends. Let's get started. Number 1. The Great Progress Illusion. Ask most people to imagine a prehistoric human. The image is almost always the same, a starving caveman. Dirty, exhausted, constantly searching for food. Always one mistake away from death. This image is so common that we rarely question it. But where did it come from? Much of it can be tracked back to a famous idea proposed by 17th century philosopher Thomas Hobbes. Hobbes described life before civilization as solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. Civilization became the hero. Prehistory became the villain. Then agriculture arrived. Then cities arrived. Then technology arrived. And life became better. Case closed. But when anthropologists actually started studying hunter-gatherer societies, the evidence didn't match the story. In 1966, at a famous anthropology conference called Man the Hunter, anthropologist Marshall Sahlins presented an idea that shocked the academic world. He called hunter-gatherers the original affluent society. At first, that sounds ridiculous. How can people without money, houses, cars, electricity, or banks possibly affluent? Because Sahlins argued that affluence can be achieved in 2 different ways. Method 1. Produce more, acquire more, consume more. This is a modern approach. Method 2. Want less, need less, be satisfied sooner. This was the hunter-gatherer approach. Instead of spending their lives chasing endless growth, they simply stopped when they had enough. If your goal is not to maximize production, then you don't need to spend every waking hour working. This idea directly challenged one of the civilization's deepest assumptions, that most technology automatically means more freedom. Think about it. We invented tractors, computers, smartphones, artificial intelligence. These inventions will save time, make life easier, will reduce work. Yet, the average modern worker still spends roughly 90,000 hours of their life working. Technology became more efficient, but humans didn't necessarily become more free. For more people, life became an endless cycle of wake up, work, recover, repeat. Now compare that with the logic of a forager. You gather enough food for the day. Your family is fed. The group is safe. Why continue working? There is no stock market, no promotion waiting, no quarterly report, no retirement account. So work stops and life begins. This is the first major lesson anthropology teaches us. Ancient humans were not poor because they lacked possessions. They were rich in something modern people constantly complain they don't have: time. And once researchers began measuring exactly how much time they had, the result became even more surprising. Number 2, the 15-hour work week. Imagine walking into an office tomorrow morning and your manager tells you, "Good news, starting today you will only work 15 hours a week." Most people would assume they are dreaming, but for many hunter-gatherers, that wasn't a dream, that was reality. In the early 1960s, anthropologist Richard Lee traveled to the Kalahari Desert to study the Zhuhai people. At the time, most academics still believed hunter-gatherers lived in a constant state of desperation. The assumption seemed obvious: no farms, no factories, no food shortage, no supermarkets. Surely they must spend every waking moment searching for food. But Lee decided to do something surprisingly simple. Instead of guessing, he counted every hour, every day, every activity, and what he found shocked the scientific community. 12 to 19 hours, not per day, per week. That means many adults spend less time acquiring food than a modern employee spends in the office by Tuesday afternoon. And this wasn't an isolated case. Researchers began finding similar patterns among hunter-gatherers groups around the world. The exact numbers varied. Different environments created different challenges, but the overall pattern remained remarkably consistent. Hunter-gatherers generally worked far less than people expected, and often less than modern workers. Now, at this point, many people immediately ask, wait, if they worked so little, were they constantly starving? Actually, the evidence suggests the opposite. Because hunter-gatherers weren't trying to maximize production, they were trying to maximize efficiency. There's a huge difference. A modern economy rewards producing more than you need. A foraging economy rewards obtaining enough with the least possible effort. Once the goal is reached, work stops. Think about a lion. A lion doesn't hunt because it loves productivity. A lion hunts because it's hungry. Once it's fed, it rests. Humans spend most of their evolutionary history operating under a similar principle. Get enough food, meet today's needs, then conserve energy. And there was another reason they didn't overwork. Overproduction could actually be dangerous. Today we can fill warehouses with food. We can refrigerate it, freeze it. Ancient humans couldn't do that. If a forager harvested resources faster than nature could replace them, they risked destroying their future food supply. The smartest strategy wasn't maximum extraction. It was sustainable extraction. They understood something many modern societies still struggle with. Infinite growth inside a finite environment is impossible. And there was another reason they could avoid accumulation. Everything you owed had to be carried. Imagine moving house every few days, by foot, without vehicles. Suddenly every possession becomes a heavy burden. The more stuff you own, the harder life becomes. Which explains one of the most famous quotes ever recorded among the Zhuhai. When asked why they didn't adopt agriculture, one man reportedly replied, "Why should we plant when there are so many mongongo nuts in the world?" That sentence sounds almost absurd to modern ears, but hidden inside it is a completely different philosophy of life. Why work harder than necessary? Why create extra labor? Why spend months planting and harvesting if nature already provides enough? This brings us back to Marshall Sahlins, because when he called hunter-gatherers the original affluent society, he wasn't saying they had more possessions. He was saying they possessed something modern people desperately want: freedom from scarcity. And what did they do with all that extra time? That is where the story becomes even more surprising. Because they weren't sitting alone in caves doing nothing. They were socializing, storytelling, making tools, creating music, making jewelry, dancing, singing, teaching children. In other words, they were doing many of the things modern people claim they would do if they suddenly became financially free. Now, this doesn't mean prehistoric life was easy. Let's be clear. There were injuries, droughts, disease, predators, harsh winters. Life could be brutally difficult. But difficulty is not the same thing as constant labor. Hunter-gatherers faced uncertainty. Modern workers faced schedules. Hunter-gatherers worried about survival. Modern workers often worry about productivity. Number 3. Insulting the meat. Imagine you have just done something extraordinary. You have spent hours tracking an animal. You finally bring down a massive antelope. Enough meat to feed dozens of people. You return to camp expecting admiration, respect, even gratitude. Instead, everyone starts insulting you. They call the animal skinny, worthless, a bag of bones. Some people even laugh. Others joke that there isn't enough meat to feed a child. Nobody congratulates you. Nobody praises your skill. Nobody calls you a hero. Sounds insane, right? But this strange ritual may have been one of the most important inventions in human history because it helped solve a problem that every society eventually faces: power. The modern world is built on hierarchy. Companies have CEOs, governments have leaders, armies have generals. Every institution has a chain of command. We are so used to hierarchy that it feels natural. But for most of the human history, humans lived in small bands of roughly 20 to 50 people. And in those groups, hierarchy was dangerous because once a person gains enough power, they can begin controlling everyone else's time, everyone else's food, everyone else's freedom. Hunter-gatherers understood this long before political science existed. They knew the greatest threat wasn't always starvation. Sometimes it was domination. This is where one of the anthropologists' most fascinating discoveries appear: a social practice known as insulting the meat. The most famous account comes from an anthropologist, Richard Lee. While living among the Zhuhong Sea, Lee decided to thank the community for helping him with his research. So he purchased a huge ox for a feast, a massive animal, over 1,000 pounds. He expected people to be impressed. Instead, they mocked it relentlessly. Some called it thin, others called it worthless. People joked there wouldn't be enough meat for everyone. Lee was shocked, even hurt. The animal was enormous. Why were they pretending otherwise? Later, an elder explained what was happening, and his answer revealed something profound. He said, when a hunter kills a large animal, he begins to think of himself as a big man. He starts seeing everyone else as small. So before pride can grow, the community cuts it down. Not because they hate success, but because they fear what success can become: power. And this wasn't their only defense against hierarchy. They had another powerful system, one that would sound almost impossible in today's world. It's called demand sharing. In modern society, if someone asks for your food, your money, or your resources, you can say no. In many hunter-gatherer groups, saying no was not so simple. If one family had food and another did not, sharing wasn't viewed as generosity. It was viewed as an obligation, a social responsibility. In some groups, people could openly request resources from others, and refusing could damage your reputation. To modern minds, this sounds unfair. Why should productive people support less productive people? But hunter-gatherers were not optimizing for efficiency. They were optimizing for survival. Humor was one of their most powerful weapons. Anthropologists repeatedly found that teasing, jokes, and ridicule help regulate behavior. If someone became arrogant, aggressive, or acted superior, people mocked them. Every joke, every story, every ritual, every social norm worked together toward one goal: protecting individual freedom by preventing anyone from accumulating too much power. Number 4. The lost art of leisure. Modern people often assume that if work disappears, people become lazy, unproductive, aimless. that without deadlines, pauses, and schedules, society falls apart. But the archaeological record tells a different story. Because when ancient humans were not hunting, they were creating. And what they created still amazes scientists today. Imagine walking through southern France around 30,000 years ago. The landscape is wild, no cities, no roads, no electricity, no written language. Nearby, hidden behind layers of rock, is a cave. A cave so dark that sunlight never reaches its deepest chambers. Now imagine someone carrying a flickering flame into that darkness, step by step, deeper and deeper underground. Not to find food, not to escape danger, but to create art. Today we call this place Showeth Cave. Inside, archaeologists discovered extraordinary paintings of lions, horses, rhinos, not crude stick figures, not random marks on stone, but sophisticated artwork showing movement, perspective, and emotion. Some of these paintings are so advanced that modern artists remain impressed by them. Creating them required effort. The artist had to enter a completely dark cave, carry fire-based lighting, gather pigments, prepare materials, and spend hours painting. Think about what that means. Someone had enough time, enough energy, and enough motivation to create something that served no immediate survival purpose. They were not simply trying to stay alive, they were trying to express something. And Showeth isn't an isolated example. Thousands of miles away, in what is now Germany, archaeologists uncovered another remarkable discovery: a flute, approximately 40,000 years old, carefully carved from bird bone, deliberately designed to produce different notes. Pause for a moment and imagine the person who made it. Someone sat down and invested precious time crafting a musical instrument. Not a weapon, not a hunting tool, a flute. Which means that long before cities existed, long before agriculture, long before written history, humans were already making music, already creating experiences that went beyond survival. And the evidence keeps appearing. At Blombos Cave in South Africa, archaeologists discover shells that had been intentionally modified and worn as personal ornaments. In other words, jewelry. People decorating themselves, expressing identity, displaying status, beauty, belonging, or meaning. Again, something far beyond simple survival. Taken together, these discoveries reveal something important. Ancient humans were not spending every waking moment searching for food, because if survival consumed every available hour, none of these activities would exist. No cave paintings, no music instruments, no ornaments, no culture. In fact, many anthropologists suggest that culture itself became possible because humans had enough free time to create it. And perhaps nowhere is this more visible than around the campfire. Anthropologist Polly Wiesner spent years studying communication patterns among hunter-gatherers. What she discovered was remarkable. During the daytime, conversations were mostly practical. People discussed food, hunting, water, resources, just daily tasks, the information necessary for survival. But when darkness arrived, something changed. The campfire transformed the social world. Imagine sitting beside that fire. Children listening, adults gathered together, the day's work finished, the darkness stretching beyond the edge of the flames, and then someone begins telling a story. Maybe it's about an ancestor, a dangerous hunt, a clever trickster, a lesson about cooperation, a warning about the world beyond camp. For thousands of generations, stories served as humanity's first education system, its first theater, its first library, its first social network. Long before books existed, stories carried knowledge across generations. A child could learn which animals were dangerous, how to behave socially, how the world worked, all through stories. Which may explain something about modern humans. Why we love movies, why we love novels, why we binge watch documentaries. Because storytelling isn't a modern invention, it's ancient. It may be one of the oldest things humans ever did together. Number 5. The agricultural trap. If hunter gatherers worked less, slept naturally, and spent their evenings telling stories around campfires, then one question becomes impossible to ignore. Why did humans give it all up? Agriculture seems like the obvious answer. More food, more stability, more surviving children. Civilization itself became possible. Case closed. Or so it seems. Because some historians and anthropologists argue that agriculture may have been one of the greatest trade-offs in human history. Around 12,000 years ago, humans began domesticating plants, wheat in the Middle East, rice in Asia, maize in the America. For the first time, people stopped following food. Instead, they made food stay in one place. At first, it looked like an upgrade, but then the hidden cost arrived. Historian Noah Harari describes this transformation in a provocative way. He argues that humans did not domesticate wheat. Wheat domesticated humans. Before farming, humans followed food. After farming, they spent their lives clearing land, carrying water, protecting crops, harvesting grain. From wheat's perspective, it won. A tiny grass that once grew in a small corner of the Middle East spread across the planet because humans devoted their lives to helping it reproduce. And here's the irony. Agriculture often increased total food production while making individual lives harder. How do we know? Because the skeletons are still here and bones don't lie. Archaeologists have compared hunter-gatherer skeletons with those of early farmers. The results are remarkably consistent. Early farmers were often shorter, less healthy, more prone to disease, more likely to suffer nutritional deficiencies. In many populations, average height declined after agriculture. Teeth became worse, anemia increased, and signs of repetitive stress injuries became common. Why? Because hunter-gatherers consumed dozens of different foods, like animals, fruits, nuts, roots, honey, fish, plants. Early farmers increasingly dependent on a small number of crops. When your diet becomes dominated by grain, you may get calories, but calories aren't the same thing as nutrition. Then came another problem, disease. Hunter-gatherers moved frequently. Their camps were temporary. Population density remained low. Disease outbreaks struggled to spread. Agriculture changed that. For the first time, large group of people began living together. Alongside domesticated animals, cattle, pigs, chickens, goats, many of the history's deadliest diseases became possible only after agriculture. Civilization produced food surpluses, but it also produced plagues. And agriculture created something hunter-gatherers rarely possessed, a surplus. Once food can be restored, it can be controlled, taxed, inherited, or stolen. For the first time, wealth accumulation became possible, and where wealth accumulates, inequality follows. Because whoever controlled the grain controlled the future. Soon, society needed guards, administrators, tax collectors, armies. The state was born not necessarily because people wanted it, but because agriculture made it possible. And with that, humanity entered a new world, a world of hierarchy, property, taxes, obligations, and eventually jobs. Number 6. Why you feel exhausted. Now let's bring the story back to you. Because this isn't really a story about hunter-gatherers. It's a story about modern humans. And one uncomfortable question. Why are so many people exhausted? Millions of people wake up tired, work tired, return home tired, go to sleep tired, then repeat the process again. And often they blame themselves. They think, maybe I'm lazy, maybe I'm not disciplined enough, maybe I'm doing something wrong. But anthropology suggests another possibility. Maybe part of the problem is the environment. For hundreds of thousands of years, the human brain evolved for one environment. Then, within a tiny fraction of evolutionary time, We built another, a mismatch between ancient biology and modern conditions. Your brain evolved expecting movement, community, autonomy, face to face interaction, variety. Instead, it often receives screens, isolations, schedules, deadlines. This doesn't mean civilization is bad. Modern medicine alone has saved billions of lives. Electricity, sanitation, vaccination, technology. These are extraordinary achievements. The point isn't that the past was perfect. It wasn't. The point is that evolution moves slowly. Civilization moves quickly. And sometimes the two fall out of sync. Which brings to us back to the Marshall Sahlins' original question. What does it mean to be affluent? Modern society often answers more money, more possessions, more productivity, more growth, more consumption, and hunter-gatherers offered a radically different answer. Enough. Enough food, enough security, enough possessions, enough work. Maybe that's the most important lesson hidden in all this research. Not that we should abandon civilization, not that we should return to caves, but that human beings were never designed to spend every waking moment optimizing productivity. We are also creatures of stories, friendship, play, curiosity, conversation, rest. Because when archaeologists uncover cave paintings or ancient flutes, they reveal something profound. Humanity's greatest achievements did not emerge from endless work. They emerged from free time. And perhaps that's why this story matters. Because the next time your alarm clock drags you out of bed, the next time your inbox fills faster than you can answer it, the next time you feel guilty for resting, remember this. For most of the human history, rest was not a reward, it was life. Take care, and I will see you in the next one.